Hello, everybody, and good morning. Once again, it's Ed Rosenberg, and today I have the pleasure of talking to Gary Nealon. Gary, how you doing today?
Good. I'm doing awesome. How about yourself?
Okay, I'm doing great. First of all, Gary, I mean, it looks like you got a lot going on. You have a bunch of
Yeah.
websites. You want to tell me a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah. So I'm the owner of I have three businesses right now. The main one's called the Rocks Group, which is it's a basically a conglomerate of like home improvement e-commerce sites. Our largest being RTA Cabinet Store, which we're on track to do probably about 30 million this year through our website. Um, we have some other ancillary stuff around it, probably about 10 sites under that one. My other company is called Nealon Solutions, which it started to create software programs to solve issues we were having within the cabinet company. So we spun off a couple of SaaS programs or software as a solutions for small businesses, and we have a couple mobile apps under that as well. And then for fun, I created a kind of a third company, which is called Wine Trail Adventures, which actually there's a sign for it behind me, which is a social media platform for wine tasting. And it's also a marketing platform for the wineries. So among all that, I also do consulting for e-commerce companies. I've got roughly a dozen clients that I work with, and we help them scale from like six figures to 7 and 8 figures over the course of 6 to 8 months.
You didn't have anything to do with Gary V.
I've met him several times, but I have nothing to do with him.
Right, because he also does, I know the winery, and
Yep.
he's also in this space. Okay, so it was very interesting. I was reading about your consulting, and it seems like you've had tremendous success in scaling businesses. And
Yep.
scaling e-commerce businesses is probably it's a hot topic because it seems like you can make a couple of adjustments and you can go from $500,000 to $20 million business.
Yep.
In the real world or in the old real world, you couldn't really do that. Like if you had one store and then you had to get another store, you couldn't just go from 500,000 to 20 million.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit. I saw you had some fantastic blog posts. You had one where you talk about the three biggest mistakes business owners make. So you want to tell me what they are, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, just in working with different companies, I mean, I've been doing this for probably about 10 years now. So over the course, I was helping companies for free and then decided to move into some consulting. But just as I see companies growing, some of the mistakes that I see is that companies don't diversify fast enough. I know a lot of your audience is the Amazon world, and it's a great cash flow, but it can be a dangerous game, especially if terms of services change or Amazon doesn't like something you're doing. You can go from a 7-figure business to next to nothing overnight. I have a couple friends that they had people come in from China that were competing and shipping direct, and people knocking off their products, and it's to me, I always wanted to diversify. So a couple of years ago, when most of our traffic was organic through Google, one of the changes dropped some of our traffic, and I was like, from that point on, I never wanted any traffic source to be more than 15% of our business, so that if something were to happen and something were to shut down, it wouldn't completely destroy the business. So I'd say that's one of the biggest things that I see is that people don't diversify fast enough. We want to have multiple traffic flows coming in, whether it's Facebook ads or Google ads or Amazon or eBay, but just making sure that you have these little pockets that can create a little bit of cash flow, and it starts to compile itself over the course of the lifetime of the company. Second one I would say is that, especially with some of the people, the younger kids that I know that have come in and like made a lot of cash fast, is that they don't plan for the future. They're spending like that's never going to stop. So we try to be a little bit more conservative. Like, yes, we're making money, but we always try to make sure that we're putting back into the business instead of spending it outside the business. So reinvesting into the company and making sure that you're growing the company from both internally and externally versus taking that cash and spending it somewhere else. So, I mean, those are probably the two biggest mistakes that I see. And the third one would probably be not understanding the customer. With Amazon, it's a little bit different because Amazon's driving some traffic, you're running paid traffic to it. But when you get into the e-commerce world and you're everything from your sales copy to your advertising, you really have to know what the avatar of that customer is or what their profile is. Everything from like how many kids they have, income levels, hobbies. Once you start to build a mailing list, Facebook makes that a lot easier because you can merge it with them and they can give you some demographics. But prior to that, it's kind of a guessing game. So we always try to do as much research before we jump into a niche so that we really understand who we're talking to. And when you hit that message on the head, it changes everything. It changes your advertising, changes your sales copy, changes where you target people, because some social media platforms are different than others. So really understanding who that customer is changes everything that you do within the company. So we'll spend a lot of time on the front end just learning that before we jump into something, so that we're not making mistakes before, from the get-go.
Right. That was good. Now, one thing I've noticed about selling on Amazon, it's not just an issue of that it's a great source and such a big percentage of e-commerce is done on Amazon. It's just so easy to get started. You can buy a couple of deals and within a week, you're in business, you're a businessman. How do I make that transition? What would be the first, like walk me through this step? Like if you're going from a $500,000 business on Amazon to 20 million on multiple platforms, walk me through that transition.
And the first thing that I would do is, depend on how complex you want to get. I mean, the simplest way to be to like start a Shopify store or a WooCommerce store, something that's easy to get going, has a lot of plugins, so you don't need like an IT person or anything like that. That is the simplest barrier to entry to like an e-commerce platform. For us, because our business was a little more complex, everything was custom coded. So we have an IT team and all that internally. But anytime I'm consulting with somebody, like if they're just getting going on the outside of Amazon or even just in the e-com, we'll just set up a real simple Shopify store. It gives them everything they need to know, from like merchant processing, SEO plugins and all that good stuff. They're available for free, or for very cheap. So start with the Shopify platform, transition your data feed or your product list over, and then it's just building some backlinks. So backlinks can be as simple as getting like your Google business listing, a Yelp listing. All those things add value back to the site. We do a lot through content distribution. So we'll create articles, videos, imagery, things like that, and just blast it out. So we have a sort of a formula for taking like a one blog post and turning it into about 12 different formats of content. And then we'll put it on just about any site that you can find. All that will start creating backlinks for your site, and start creating some value for you. Then next phase would be running some social media campaigns and getting some traffic in from Google, Facebook, Instagram, some of those platforms, depending on which ones we're targeting, and just capturing that data. So the big thing that I like about e-commerce versus Amazon is that it allows you to capture all that customer information. So you can capture the email address, name, and everything, and you can reach out to them through different methodologies. So for us, I think there's a sort of a combination that works really well with Amazon and having a website, because a lot of times if you have a website, people find your product, but they'll go to check on Amazon to see if they can get it cheaper. The same thing, if they find you on Amazon, they'll sometimes come to your website just to see if you're a legit company and make sure that everything's up to par. So I think those kind of go hand in hand. And what we've seen a lot of times is that when somebody is either Amazon dependent or e-commerce dependent and they cross platforms, they'll actually see a boost on both of them, because there is that kind of symbiotic connection where people go back and forth and just check prices and try to get more information about the company. The difference is once you get them on your site, you can retarget them and you can do a lot of things with them on the social media platforms that you couldn't do with Amazon, because they control that data. So I think there's a really good working relationship, and where we see the biggest growth is when somebody is solely dependent on one platform and then they start to get off and like kind of diversify. That's where we can really come in and like just explode their business.
Right. So it seems like what you're saying is that it's Amazon, and the next step will be opening up your own website as opposed to, say, going to Jet and Walmart. I think that makes sense, because if you open a Jet Walmart, it's more the same idea. It's more the same. They're controlling your customers, and they're not giving you the email address, and it's just like opening up another account. So
exactly. Yeah. So we would always recommend for somebody that's solely dependent on Amazon to start, create their own e-commerce store, build that up a little bit. And then as you continue to add, as you get some ground and traction with that, then start to expand in like Jet and Walmart, Sears.com, eBay and some of that other stuff.
Right. Okay. I saw you had another post. You said about 2 core metrics business owners struggle with.
Yeah. So, and I see a lot of this again, going back to like Amazon, coming off of Amazon, is with Amazon, you're almost looking at the profit per individual transaction, because you don't have that customer relationship, and you can't see the lifetime value of most of those customers. So when people transition off, or even when they're just getting started with e-commerce, they look at the profit per order versus the lifetime value of that customer. When you change that mindset and you look at the customer as a whole over the course of a year or 2 years, it changes everything about how you can advertise and how much that customer is worth to you. So as an example, I have a friend of mine that's in the fitness niche, and he had an e-commerce book. And what he figured out was that if he was charging $39.99, all his competition was trying to only get advertising for about $25, so they still made a profit. But when he looked at his lifetime value, he figured out after he got them in their email system, he made another $110 off them. So he was willing to pay almost $70 or $80 for the same customer that somebody was only willing to pay $25 for. Once he figured out that formula, he was just crushing them with advertising because they couldn't afford to pay as much as he could. So when you look at the lifetime value, it gives you more room from the advertising perspective to spend a little bit more to get a higher quality customer. And it just kind of snowballs. Once Facebook and Google see that you're spending more, they'll actually drop the cost. Mm-hmm. They'll give you higher quality customers. You have a higher conversion rate. So everything starts to snowball once you figure out that you can actually pay more for something than somebody else. So that's probably the biggest thing that I see with in terms of metrics, that it's kind of like an aha moment when I'm like giving a presentation or something like that, where people are like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, instead of saying I'm only making $8 per order, if I look and that customer orders 5 times, I'm now making $40. I can spend a little bit more to get that guy.
Yeah, no, I think it depends on the business, but I think that's genius, because basically what you're saying is that on Amazon, when you're paying pay per click, or you're just making it like a drug. You're just enjoying it right then, but you're getting nothing long term. But when you're doing AdWords on Google or Facebook, retaining that customer has a lot of value, and that's very good. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I'd say so. Then the other metrics that we kind of look at is, and we have a ton of metrics that we look at, but especially when it comes to e-commerce, it's not just looking at like single transactions, but also in terms of conversion rates on the site. So we try to increase the number of people we got coming in, how they convert, the conversion rate for the site, and then also the lifetime value. So we add all 3 of them together. We target them throughout the year, and we can drop our cost per acquisition tremendously. So what we do, and it's funny, we just had a sale, and it was actually one of our largest sales we've ever had. We were spending a lot of money on the front end for advertising, and it looked like we were losing money. But when we averaged it out over the entire sale, we realized that through remarketing and retargeting, all those people were coming back at a super low rate, and we ended up making a lot more money off of it. So we now try to drive as much traffic as possible and use our remarketing as our tool, because one of the things with the advertising platforms is that it's getting so congested that now if you don't have a relationship or you can't retarget them, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get into the door for like cold traffic. So we try to get traffic from social media, from articles, from videos, from everything that we can, just to get them to our sites. We could tag them and then follow them around for 30 to 60 days.
And you retarget them through Google and Facebook?
Yep. Yeah. So we've built up sort of this, I want to call it like a hub and spoke system, where we've built up a bunch of social media assets around our website. So we looked at like the hobbies of our customers. So for our cabinet business, the wife or the decision maker of the family for our business, she was into cooking, she was into baking and gardening and some of that stuff. So we created social media assets around that so that we controlled that customer. So then every time we run a sale, we can run ads to them that our competition can't. And it kind of insulates us and gives us like a barrier of customers that our competition can't access. So for us, e-commerce is the world, because we can create so many things on social media, and we use actually Amazon as like a lead gen for us. So we have a 7-figure business on Amazon, but most of it, even though we're making money off it, is just to get people back into our ecosystem so that we can target them again.
But the only way you can do that essentially is if they happen to go off Amazon and search for you.
Well, ours is a little bit different because they're big, bulky products. So we actually have to follow up with the customer to confirm shipping and delivery dates and all that stuff. So we're in a little bit different niche where our customer service can reach out and be like, hey, want to make sure, you're going to be available this day or that day for delivery. And then we start a conversation that way.
You create a relationship that way, right? That's great.
Yeah. So our product is probably the worst thing you could sell online. I always tell people that because it's big, it's bulky, it's awkward to ship and everything. But at the same time, that the methods that we've used can apply to just about any product. So we've worked our tail off to kind of come up with some really good advertising strategies for marketing products like this.
And now you offer this service to other businesses.
Yeah. So then I started getting I spoke at an ASM event a couple years ago, and I did a couple different things for Amazon. And I started getting invited to speak because people were fascinated with the fact that like we could sell this big bulky product, and some people were struggling with, shipping just a small package. So I would go into these events and I'd talk about how we did different things and diversified, and people started coming up to me like, how do we hire you? And I'm like, I don't really do that. So the last couple of years, as I've been transitioning out of the day-to-day stuff with the cabinet business, I've been moving more into consulting, and then also launching the products that we use internally, and putting them out in the marketplace to help other businesses.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's how it works normally with consulting. No one just puts up a sign that says, "Hey, I'm consulting."
Yeah.
People contact you, and then they're willing to pay for it. Okay, what were you saying about? And this is how I found you originally: data feed automation. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so data feed automation was one of the programs that we created internally to solve the issue of being on multiple platforms. So we're on right now. Our cabinet business, I think, is on 18 different marketplaces. Wow. So when you're dealing with, a random sale here, a random sale there, it was hard to manage all that and also keep all the information on each of the sites current. So we created a data feed automation program that you can take either your Amazon, export your CSV file or from Amazon or from your e-commerce store, dump it in here, and it'll allow you to centralize all that. So you can see all the sales come into one location. You can communicate back and forth to each of the platforms, and all your data is there. So you can, if you have a change in pricing to one product, instead of going to 17 different marketplaces, you can do it all in one location. Gives you some competitor pricing competition or comparisons on each of the platforms, so you can micromanage, a price on eBay versus a price on Amazon, and do some of that stuff. So we had used it internally, and when one of my friends found out about it, he's like, "How do I get that?" And I was like, "I never really thought about it, but I guess we could kind of spin that off into its own product." So that's what we ended up doing. So it's in beta now. It's about to launch probably in the next month or so. We've got a lot of really good feedback about it. I know it works because we've used it internally for probably about 3 years now. So yeah, it's going to be available to the public now, probably in the next month or so.
Yeah, that's a big business, multi-channel marketing. And you do listings from there too, or it's just managing the information?
Yeah, you can add new listings. You can do everything from there. The thing I like about it is when we were dealing with so many platforms, we had to have two people managing everything. It streamlined it down to one person, and we can get full detailed reports from all the platforms all in one place. So it's really made my life a lot easier when I was dealing with all that stuff.
Right. So that's you. So you're going to be running that data feed automation. That's you.
Yeah. So I've got so we built up a team around all the software that we're doing. So it's going to be me and a couple other people that are kind of doing the day-to-day stuff and just pushing that out to the public here soon.
Wow, that's a big market. So you got a lot going on, Gary. And maybe we'll have you speaking at one of our events.
Yeah, man, I'd love to.
Where are you located at?
I actually spend half my time in New York and half my time in Philly. So go back and forth.
So you're a Yankee fan? Or?
I'd have to embarrassed to say I'm a Phillies fan at this point.
Sorry to hear that. Okay, Gary. I really appreciate that, and that was very informative, and we'll definitely keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye.